Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. As it was said, my name's Ben Tice, owner and director of Skol Marketing. We're a local Minnesota digital marketing company that really specializes in working with owner or founder-led companies, both small and large, micro business to medium-sized business. And what we kind of focus on is web development, SEO, SEM, and social media. But the favorite part of my job is partnering with great organizations like Skol and presenting on those different types of topics that we do as a service so that you can better understand these. If you decide to do these internally or hire someone externally, it's really important information to understand, again, the why of these services, the how, and all of that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kind of get started. Just a couple kind of housekeeping notes is if you guys have any questions, please put them into the chat. And we'll go ahead and make sure that we get those notified or taken care of as we go about here. Also, this is being recorded. So note that you will not only get a copy of the presentation in PDF form, you'll also get a copy of the recording so you can look at that at a later point. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And we're talking today about intro to Google Ads and essentially SEM or search engine marketing. So growing your business with digital ads, being able to get out there right away with ads and being able to get into your potential or your consumer's face. Okay, so really there are going to be kind of 5 main things that you're going to kind of see throughout the presentation. So real quickly, we're going to go over what is SEM or search engine marketing. We're then going to get into some of the different ad options. There, honestly, when I gave this presentation even just 2 years ago, it's amazing the amount of different types of advertising you can do within search engine marketing. Obviously, why that's important to you guys is now you have more options for your budget, for your expertise, and more importantly, for your demographic and how they may be able to see those and for you to connect with them. Now you have more options to do that. Then we're going to get into setting up an account, and we're going to kind of stick with more of like the classic Google ads because those are still the most popular, but some of the other stuff is still going to be applicable that we're going to talk about some of the other options, but we're really going to focus on some of like setting up an actual account and these, again, the tips, the tricks, the strategies, and all of that type of stuff we're going to walk through with you today. Okay, so it's important to understand when I keep saying SEM, and I'm sure you've heard of SEO, and there's PPC, and there's all these other kind of acronyms within digital marketing that get kind of confusing. So specifically today, we're talking about SEM, which essentially stands for search engine marketing. Really what search engine marketing is that it's pretty much all-encompassing marketing, via search engine accounts or search engine partners. The reason that last part is important is because in 2018, Google, their advertising model used to be called Google AdWords. You still probably hear it referred to that. I still sometimes refer to it that way because that's what people know it as and things like that. The reason that Google switched from AdWords to ads is because some of their advertising models, which we'll get into here, aren't predicated on words anymore. It used to just be PPC, pay-per-click, which again, we'll get into just specific. Really what we wanted to kind of talk about, if you've heard of display, retargeting, PPC, all of these different types of advertising, those are a piece or a different type of search engine marketing. So search engine marketing is really the umbrella of anytime you're paying a search engine or paying a digital company to run ads, not like, for instance, hiring Skol Marketing to do ads, but the actual that you're paying a platform like Google for the ad space itself, that's search engine marketing. And there's going to be some different ways. So we're going to talk about some of these, but you might have heard some of these. There's platforms called Google AdWords or pay-per-click. That's what we're going to focus the most on today because that's the most popular and that's the most kind of more applicable to really everyone. Also, there's another platform that's called AdWords Express. We have display ads, we have retargeting ads, we have YouTube ads, there are Gmail ads, there is Google Shopping ads. So you can see that there are a ton of different opportunities now, whereas honestly, a couple of years ago, you were pretty much looking at predominantly Google AdWords with PPC. Now we've expanded so much to offer a lot of these other different types of advertising models and channels that you can reach not only different demographics, but reach them differently. So it's important to understand as you start to get into, okay, Ben, I've got my business here. I'm either new, maybe I'm established, whatever it may be. It's the same kind of question though that has to come up. Doesn't matter if you're new, old, seasoned, established or whatnot, is what type of advertising channel are you going to go with? So the main one that a lot of times, again, we're going to talk about today or that you're going to encounter is going to be Google Ads / AdWords. And so these are those classic text ads on Google search. So when you search for, roofing company near me and you see the listings at the top that look just like an organic search result, that's going to be Google Ads. These are super complex and you have full control over everything. And that's what we're going to go into today to show you how much control you have, and then also how to actually wield that control and that power that you essentially kind of have. Because I will admit that sometimes Google Ads can be too powerful if we don't understand or respect the system, and we can end up spending, again, money that we didn't mean to. It's actually one of the top things that when people come to us, I hate hearing it, but it happens all the time that, again, we get a free offer in the mail. We don't exactly know what we're doing. And the next thing we knew is we spent $1,000 of our own money and don't know where that went or anything like that. That's also why we do these workshops, to try to help you guys, but also to kind of understand some of these different types of parameters and the accounts and everything like that, so that doesn't happen to you. But really, when it comes to Google Ads, it's manual management. It's going to be a lot of kind of manual labor in being able to utilize the system there. We can target any location. So again, all those things that we can kind of control. It's really good for e-commerce because it's super powerful in that kind of respect. So again, that's the one we're going to be talking most about today. So I'm going to kind of skip over that one because we're going to have plenty of slides to look at that. Now, here's the thing is, if at the end of the presentation you go, okay, Ben, I really want to do Google Ads, but this is a little bit, again, over my head. I don't have the budget to hire someone. I don't have someone internally. You might want to look at AdWords Express then. Really what AdWords Express is, and it's more of kind of a watered down or simplified version of Google Ads. Now, you don't have as much control over it. And what you're essentially using is you're using Google's AI, artificial intelligence, to kind of make up for that. So as we get more ease of use with Google AI, we're also then losing some of that control. So it can be kind of a give and take. Eventually, if you get this, again, well-oiled machine and get this running, you eventually probably want to be at Google Ads because you can just do that much more and you can control that much more. But again, sometimes we work with a lot of clients, or we meet a lot of people, I should say, but perhaps Google AdWords Express is a good way to kind of start. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today when we start talking about creating ads, setting up ad groups, setting up keywords, all of that important stuff is you can still apply that to something like AdWords Express, the methodology and the strategies. It's just more of a simplified kind of platform. So that might be something to kind of look at. The one thing with AdWords Express, though, is it's not really going to be for something like e-commerce. It's more for your local business. So, again, you don't necessarily have to be brick and mortar, but it really does work a lot of times, again, for your kind of more local customers, the more kind of Google My Business, the red pins on the map, those types of customers is really what AdWords Express works perfect for. Now, there's a couple other ones too, and these have really been kind of exploding over the past couple of years with choices or also being a supplement to potentially running PPC. So you could be running, that's the other thing too to keep in mind is it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pick one of these. You can be running multiple of these if you would, kind of like as well. And so what we have is we have Google display ads. Really what display ads, really if you want to think about them in the most basic term, is they are going to be billboard ads. So they are going to be kind of like your digital billboard ads. So if you're on, New York Times or you're on, Star Tribune's website and you see kind of banner ads, that's essentially what display ads. What Google does is they go out to these other websites and they essentially rent that space. They then sell that space to people like us that want to run an ad. And so what's kind of nice about display ads is they are billboard ones. So it's very much impression-based marketing, which means we're going to have lower conversions, but also a lower cost at that point, because again, it's not as targeted as other digital marketing avenues. But when it comes to kind of your branding and your display ads, another important thing that can happen though, is you get to essentially kind of tell Google to say, hey, well, this is the demographic I'm looking for. So I want to be on those types of websites. So obviously, if you maybe have a feminine product that you're going for, or if it's a dress, maybe it's shoes, whatever it may be, you probably want to go more towards the health and beauty websites, because over maybe outdoor fishing sites, because maybe, or most likely, that's where your demographic most likely is. Those are the types of things that we essentially get to decide when it comes to display ads. Also, I do get questions sometimes that people have seen a product called AdSense. AdSense is where you can actually tell Google, hey, I want to rent off space on my website and have you pay me for that. The reason I bring this up is I get questions about it a lot of times. It's just being realistic and knowing, though, that if you do AdSense and you allow display ads on your website, you can do that. But until you get, again, really around like tens of thousands of views that you're getting on a consistent basis, each month, and everything like that, plus, it's really probably not going to pay off. Meaning that you might get a few pennies or you might get a couple bucks. It's not going to be a huge moneymaker unless you have a ton of traffic coming to your site. But it might be something to look at. And again, that's called AdSense if you actually want to be a provider for display ads. As a, again, marketer, again, display ads are going to be those billboard ones that we essentially get to choose via demographics of the website. Now, retargeting or remarketing ads take it a step further. And honestly, this is one of my favorite types of advertising. And I love to run a classic PPC campaign that we talked about previously, we're going to talk about today, and then supplement or wrap it around with a retargeting campaign. They work so well together. Really, what a retargeting or remarketing campaign is it uses the same kind of methodology and the same network with display ads. So it's going to show in the same type of spots. But essentially, instead of you just saying you're going after a demographic and putting a billboard up, now essentially what's happening is you're telling Google that, I'm going to tell you a trigger that someone has to accomplish, and then I want the ad to show. Let me give you a couple examples of that trigger. You could say if they go to a certain page on your site, that's the trigger, and then we follow them around. If they just come to your site in general, if maybe they came to your site from an ad or from social media. So you essentially get to have very specific triggers. And again, for those of you that maybe haven't made the correlation here, retargeting, remarketing are the platforms that, for instance, you decide to, maybe buy these sunglasses, you put them into your shopping cart and you don't buy them, and then it follows you around. Well, that was a trigger that company decided to have an ad saying, hey, when someone puts this into their, when someone puts this into their shopping cart and doesn't purchase it, that's where then we want to kind of, set that trigger and have them do have them follow us around with an ad. That's ultimately what's super powerful about it, is that you get to control the trigger there. So honestly, I highly recommend that as you start to get into, again, SEM, PPC, these different types of advertising models, I highly recommend that you really consider retargeting and remarketing, because again, it's a lot of times the same cost as display, but now you're vetting it further. You're saying that someone had to engage with you some way, somehow, and now you're being able to follow them around. This also works really well if two things happen with your business. If your decision-making process is very long, or two is if you have a very high purchase price, because a lot of times people most likely aren't maybe, like I'll give you a couple examples here. A long decision-making process might be a divorce attorney. That one, you're most likely not just going to go into a website and maybe decide to hire them right away. That's a very intimate decision. That might be, you might be going back and forth and obviously dealing with a lot of emotional things. Retargeting could help that, that divorce attorney, though, be able to, you engage with their site and somehow, and then, again, just respectfully kind of reminds you, over a certain period of time. Or for instance, maybe a car manufacturer, or, again, a car salesman, or something, again, that is super expensive. You might not be willing just to make that decision right there. That's a high purchase price, and that might be a really good thing for retargeting and remarketing. That doesn't mean that you have to be as intimate as a divorce attorney, as expensive as a car salesman, but it's just giving you a couple examples on the extreme of what we're kind of talking about and what can really be beneficial with retargeting and remarketing. Also, there's a couple more different types of ads. So one is called YouTube ads. And so if you guessed that that's running ads on YouTube, you are correct. So what we can kind of do, and if you've ever watched YouTube, you most likely have seen some ads prior to your music video or your clip that you're kind of watching. And so really what happens is you get kind of 5 seconds of where you have to watch that and then you can skip it. So as a, again, as an advertiser, we can actually then be able to advertise on YouTube. Why YouTube can be powerful is because we get to kind of go after it from more of a behavioral standpoint, where PPC and, again, even display and stuff like that, that's done a little bit differently. There's some behavioral things to display, but it's more demographic or who that person is and just a basic interest. Here, though, we even get more information about them from YouTube because Google is essentially, which owns YouTube, is going to use what they've been searching for and watching and putting into their playlists and all of that kind of stuff to kind of create a profile or avatar of them that then you can say, I want to go after a person like this. So YouTube ads can be, again, super powerful since it is more display advertising. It is low cost. With a lot of the clients that have actually, worked with us on YouTube ads, we've had a lot of success with YouTube ads because, again, it can be very cheap. And there's also a really big competitive advantage here with this is because we find a lot of times when clients come to us and are looking at YouTube ads, they just, again, their competitors just aren't doing anything. So where their competitors might be still running display ads, might be running PPC ads, we find a lot of times with YouTube ads that there's not a lot of competition, especially with local kind of companies. And that's another kind of important thing to know too, is that with YouTube ads, you don't have to run them nationwide. You can say, again, if you're a local, window washing company, you can say, hey, I only want this to show up when people are on YouTube and are looking for me in the Twin Cities or wherever your service area, of course, is. So I think that's one of those really big important things to know about with YouTube is that, and really much anything that we're talking about here, is that you can control that location. A couple other ones too, that just to kind of know that are out there is Google Shopping ads. So Google Shopping is if you ever looked for a product and you actually see kind of a ribbon of different types of products that are there with the prices and you can click on them right away and go and buy them, that's called Google Shopping. It's much more direct way than classic kind of just Googling on, again, anything, any type of product and then finding the organic search results. This is kind of a ribbon up at top or an actual section on Google that's just dedicated to selling products. So obviously, if you're not selling products, this platform isn't going to be for you. But if you are e-commerce and you are selling products, absolutely looking at Google Shopping. You essentially can pay to be featured. So when someone's looking for sunglasses, when someone's looking for laptop cases, whatever it may be that you're doing, you can be front and center with that. Now, one cool thing that Google actually did last year, and this is something to take note of if you are an e-commerce company, is that Google now is allowing you to be able to upload your products for free and at least be displayed or have the opportunity to be displayed within the Google Shopping network. Now, here's kind of the difference here is that you can still pay, and it probably is worth it to pay on some of them because you're going to be featured at the top, which obviously is a super, benefit and beneficial to you. But just the other thing to know is that you can then be able to get some of your products in there for free. Now, again, I know that people that don't have products, this doesn't really apply to, but if you do, highly recommend looking at both the free Google Shopping listings and the advertising opportunities on Google Shopping. Can be super powerful if you are an e-commerce business. And then last but not least is a newer program called Google Guaranteed. This is mainly for some select industries, kind of like in the trades or the home services. This is really, at the end of the day, it's Google's versions of Angie's List. So if you are one of those trades industries, if you are one of those industries that Google has, you can essentially get into the Google Guaranteed program. And it's, again, promoted by Google. And really what it does is it guarantees the user that when they're hiring you, if anything, of course, goes catastrophic or wrong, Google kind of essentially has their back and thus the guarantee that they're doing. It's a process where you actually have to go through a background check. You have to give, you have to put in your social security number. You have to give in your licenses, all of that kind of stuff, because again, Google's going to be guaranteeing that you're actually legit. But it can be a super powerful platform if one of your industries are there. Again, this is now going to be more for service-based companies. So where Google Shopping is going to be e-commerce, Google Guarantee is going to be for service-based companies. So we kind of have one option for each. Unlike the other ones that we talked about, those can be for either e-commerce or service-based companies. Okay, so I know we talked about a bunch of different kind of ad channels or ad types, if you will, that you can do within Google. But now we're going to really start to hone in a little bit more on PPC, because that's a lot of times where people start, and that's where we can kind of expand on, and we can be probably more specific, because the idea behind kind of Google Ads and AdWords and PPC is that traditional advertising is you're kind of looking for the consumer. You're going after websites, or you're going after putting up billboards where you think people will be able to see your stuff and be able to then engage. That absolutely can work, and that's obviously where traditional marketing has, again, has lived. Where it gets really kind of cool and interesting, though, is when you advertise with Google, and specifically PPC, you're now putting the magnifying glass into the consumer's hand. So your ads are only showing up when someone is searching for something that you designate and tell Google. Obviously, that's important, because instead of guessing on where they are at or if they're interested, you essentially get to show up when they're actively looking for it and they're in the mindset to do something. And this is where we kind of essentially get to that pay-per-click or a PPC. So just as to make sure that we're kind of on the same page, I know I kind of referenced this at the beginning, but we're talking about these ads. So if I type in, this search is business consultant, you can see there is actually the top there are 4 ads for business consultant that people are running. Here's the thing to know is every time you do a search, you have the opportunity to see 0 to 4 different types of ads. So you can sometimes see 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, whatever it is, but the maximum you'll see, at least on the top, is 4, and the least you'll see is kind of 0. Now, it's really important to know that PPC is, the whole premise of it is that you actually show up for free. So, so these people that are the Platinum Group, IBM, and, again, Gallup, these people that are running ads on here, is that they're actually showing up for free and are only being charged when someone actually clicks on that ad. That's why it can be super powerful, because again, you're showing up for free, and until someone actually looks to engage with your site, that's when you decide to kind of pay for it. So one of those things is, we'll get into obviously how much it costs and kind of the, again, how to set that up. But that's really at the, essence, and the, again, at the end of the day, what pay-per-click ads are. It also goes after kind of what I was just talking about there too, which kind of does help, is sometimes I get people that will say, well, Ben, why would I run these ads? Because I never click on those ads. I just scroll right past them. And it's a good question to ask, but because you're not charged, unless someone clicks on it, it's a perfect way, because there are a ton of people that do click on those ads. And so if you're one of those people that scroll by it, that's completely fine. But knowing that the other people, and you're not charged for those types of people, you're essentially, if you don't run ads, you have the potential of missing out, because the people that do click on those ads aren't scrolling down to your organic search results or maybe your map listings to be able to find you. The idea too that can be really beneficial with PPC is that if you do good SEO, you have a good local presence and those types of things, you can now be adding another presence onto a search page. Meaning that if I type in business consultant here, I now have the opportunity to have my ad show up. Maybe, again, I can have my website show up. I can have my local listing show up. Again, you now start to increase the amount of opportunities that you're seeing on the site. And with PPC is you're only charged if someone actually selects you. That's why it can be super powerful. And that's why, honestly, it's the fastest growing service that we're doing for clients internally. And it's also one of the fastest ways for you to get a presence, because where SEO and stuff like that, which again, I'm a huge proponent of SEO, of course, has a long-term benefit. PPC, though, has more of a short-term benefit, because we can get right up there pretty quick. Within a matter of usually a couple of weeks, we can be seeing our ads, and potentially even sooner, depending on how you're running them. Whereas obviously SEO is going to take several months to kind of do. Okay, so when we start creating an account, there's a couple things to kind of note here. So when you look to kind of create a Google AdWords/Google Ads account, there's 2 different types of accounts that you can create. You have a search network only, or you have a search network with display select. The big difference here is that search network only will really only go on to google.com. You'll only be able to see it. Some people don't realize that what Google does is, with search network with display select, is they'll actually partner with other sites or other, again, kind of partners out there, and actually kind of put some of your ads there. To be completely honest, Google will try to actually get you to do search network with display select. And there are some instances where it can work, and we've done that for clients. But usually when people are starting or just looking at this in kind of in general, I usually suggest people to start with search network only. Because again, Google's going to try and recommend with display select because they can get rid of your budget and your ads faster, which means you have to replenish and kind of pay them sooner. And there are some other kind of benefits, but really, again, when it comes down to AdWords, you want the most control. With search network only, you get to have that kind of control. So a lot of times that's what I kind of recommend to people is to do search network only, because then your ads are essentially guaranteed to really be focused on google.com, and you don't have to worry about them going to some partner site where you maybe you lose some of that control. Some other things to also consider and to look at is you also get control over devices. So you can tell Google to say, hey, I know you're going to show my ads on, desktop, mobile, and tablet, but I really want to, I really want to focus on mobile devices. I really want to kind of defocus on laptops. Whatever it may be for you. You can actually kind of decide that, and there's almost like a scrolling scale to be, okay, how much do you want to, dissuade Google from going on desktops or mobile devices or tablets or things like that. But again, going back to, it is cool that you get to have that control to kind of control where that's going for on the different devices when someone's searching for Google or on Google, excuse me. Also, probably one of the most important ones, and we kind of talked about this previously, are locations. You get to essentially say, again, any location that you can essentially type on google.com or maps, I should say, is you can use that as location. So you can do cities, you can do zip codes, you can do a radius, you can do multiple different ones. Again, if you want to do a radius in St. Cloud and a radius in Rochester and a radius in Mankato, you can do multiple of those and have those ads be showing simultaneously in those different kind of locations. So you get to be very, very specific with your location. Obviously, that's super important. If you're a plumber here in the Twin Cities, you don't really care if someone's looking for plumbing in North Carolina. So obviously, we want to make sure that Google knows to only show those, again, when they're here in the state. One little difference that you will see, or option that you will see within location, is that you can either, tell Google that, hey, I only want my ads to show up when someone is physically in this location. So let's just use the Twin Cities, for example. You can say, hey, I only want my ad to show up when someone's physically searching for, whatever I'm, selling or whatever, while they're physically in, the Twin Cities. The other option is you can say that if someone's in Duluth and they're essentially searching for roof repair Minneapolis, your ad would still show up. You get to kind of decide that. Where the difference there is that obviously one person is physically located there, but then the other option is someone might be outside of that, but maybe they live there, like, maybe they have a cabin up north and they're looking for something back home, or they're helping their parents with something. So a lot of times I suggest having the second option where you're also including that people are physically outside that area, but it only triggers if they specifically say, a location. Again, they'd have to say Lake Elmo, they'd have to say St. Paul, they'd have to say Minneapolis, and show Google that they're actually, even though they're outside that GPS area, that they're actually searching for within that GPS area. That's something to really kind of look for and what I'd kind of recommend. Also, to look at budget. This is a huge one to really kind of understand. So it's important to know that, back in the day, Google used to essentially do a monthly budget. And that's the way a lot of people think, because that's how we kind of, set up our marketing budgets is, I've got $300 a month, I've got $500 a month, I've got $5,000 a month. You're setting those there. But really what was happening before is that you would be running a campaign, and let's say you had $1,000 for the month. Well, again, it would be running constantly, and then your budget would run out on the 16th of the month, and the next 14 days you weren't able to run ads. So Google kind of changes, because there's no perfect way to kind of do this, but this is the best way that they found, is they do a daily budget to make sure that you get maximum amount of coverage throughout the entire month. So whatever your monthly budget is, you have to divide that by 30, and that's essentially how you communicate that to Google. So let me give you an example. If you have a $500 a month ad budget, you would divide that by 30, which is $1,666, and you would say that that is what your budget is. Now we'll get into a little bit more of sufficient budgets and how you should calculate your budget, because what does PPC cost is not necessarily just a direct answer. We'll get to that in a couple slides here. Also, bid strategy, and Google will kind of walk you through this a little bit in that, it's more or less, how do you want Google to spend your money? Do you want to be always number one at the top? Is that important to you? Do you want to try and get the best value knowing that you might always not be number one? There's certain things like that that you can play around with within bid strategy. And there's really honestly not a right or wrong answer. It's really your situation, your business, your budget, all of those types of things. But they'll give you some suggestions, and I highly recommend clicking to learn more on each one just to educate yourself just a little bit further so you can kind of understand that. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to us. You can reach out to your marketing provider to give you just at least a little bit more advice on what you should maybe kind of do for that. And then last but not least is ad times. So this is also where you can say that maybe you don't want your ads to run for 24 hours a day. Maybe you are a business to business and you're going to say, hey, Google, I want to run mine extended, business hours. So I'm going to run mine from 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. Also, maybe you're a company that it doesn't matter and you have people contacting you at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like I have a junk removal company and we run their ads all night because they have a lot of people that are sitting up late at night that are like, oh, I need to get rid of that couch. Bam, 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 go on to Google and find them. So it really kind of just depends. But again, it's something that you get to control both the days of the week as well as the timing of the day as well. Okay, now getting into organizing your account a little bit. So now again, we've gone over the different types of channels and the options. We've kind of gone over what, at least setting up your account. Now we need to actually start creating the assets in this account and organizing them. So there are really kind of 4 main things that you're going to have within your account that you're going to hear me kind of talk about, or, as you get in, you're going to hear referenced. So the first is campaigns. So these are going to be set of ad groups that pretty much they all share the budget. That's a really important thing, is that, when you run campaigns, they share the same ad budget. So I'll get into this, we'll show some examples, but sometimes you might have to reorganize your account if you want to have specific ad budgets go to specific types of services. Ad groups are going to be kind of a set of keywords and the actual ads that are going to pop up. And then we have ads, which are the actual single ads, and then keywords. Again, none of that really means anything until we actually start putting it into, okay, Ben, let's look at an example. So on the right-hand side here, you can see an example here. So we have a furniture store. So Ben's Furniture Store. So we've got Ben's Furniture Store. That's the account name. Well, the different campaigns may be, okay, well, I want to sell tables and I want to have a specific budget for tables. And I want to have, again, a specific budget for beds. Well, you can see how we now need to break this down, is that a campaign is just the overall arching kind of category or product or service that we're selling. When we break that down into ad groups, you can see the example here with tables. We can then have an ad group of coffee tables and another ad group of bedside tables, because obviously the person that's looking for a bedside table, that's something different than a coffee table. And that's one of those things you want to keep in the back of your mind, is the more specific you can just generally be within SEM, it's going to be the best for you. So again, splitting up your account, and this example only shows 2 ad groups. You can have as many ad groups as you want. The other thing just to keep in mind, remember that all of the ad groups are pulling from the same budget. So you just need to kind of keep that in mind as you're doing it. So you may have to reorganize. This has happened a couple of times where if we have specific ad budgets, you may have to make a campaign for coffee tables and a campaign for bedside tables. Now, again, some of that might happen as you get going with this, but it's just one of those things that kind of keep in the back of your mind, that you're going to set all of this up. And then obviously we have the right to kind of change it. You might have to reorganize things, but this is more the classic way. This usually is a good place to kind of start. And honestly, more often than not, this is sufficient. And this is how Google even recommends to kind of set up your account. You can see the example with beds, sofa beds, king size beds, obviously way different, but they're still under beds. And then underneath those ad groups, that's where we'd actually have the ads and the keywords. The keywords are going to be the things that people actually type to pull up your ad that people are going to see and be intrigued about, to say, oh, this is what I want to click and be able to find more information about these coffee tables, which then that is when you're going to get charged. So looking at that, is the next few slides are probably some of the most important things we're going to talk about here, because now it gets to, okay, Ben, I set up my account, Ben's Furniture Store. I set up my, again, I set up my different campaigns. Now I actually have to write the ads that are going to intrigue somebody to actually click on me so I can potentially kind of sell them. So it's important to know that you can have unlimited ads for each ad group. So again, the coffee table, you can have different types of ads, and it's recommended that you at least have 3 ads per ad group. The reason for this is you want to try different, again, arranging different types of call to actions, using different types of words, because you don't know what's necessarily going to click with someone. And what we essentially do is when we create at least 3 different types of ads, and when I say different types, again, they're all going to be about coffee tables, excuse me. They're all going to be about coffee tables, but you're just going to try different wording and different ordering and different things like that to see what is going to work best. It also allows Google, because Google's wanting to try to pick the best one for you, and they're going to do what's kind of called A/B testing. That what A/B testing is that part of the population that searches for coffee table is going to see one version of the ad, and the other one might see another one, and they're going to see what works better for you. That's what's really cool within kind of the system, that it does this A/B testing for you. That's ultimately also why you want to at least have 3 different ads. You give Google enough ammo, so to speak, to be able to kind of run some of those A/B tests. Also, it's important to know that some of these ads are going to look a little bit different compared to mobile and desktop, and it will show you a preview and you can see that. It's just important to note that and to make sure that you have, that you're being cognizant of that, because they are going to look different and they may be engaged different as well. It's important to also realize that whenever you do an ad, it kind of goes through like a mini approval process, just to make sure. The biggest thing is making sure that you're not having anything inappropriate or anything against policies. We'll get into some of those things, but really they kind of come around to, of course, no swearing, no excessive, punctuation. You can't do 4 exclamation points in a row. Excessive capitalization, they don't do. So they have some pretty strict kind of guidelines to make sure you can't do emojis, things like that. They want to just make sure that it's clean and as simple as possible. Also, again, as you start to create ads, you're going to see what is called a quality score. What a quality score is that Google is essentially looking at the ad that you created, also looking at your account overall in good standing, and then really more specifically though, it's taking that ad and comparing it to where you're sending someone. So essentially your website or your landing page. The more direct and the more specific, remember I talked about the more specific you can be with these accounts, the better it's gonna be for you. So the more specific that your landing page that you're sending somebody to matches keywords and everything on your ad, then that's gonna increase your quality score. So it's trying to essentially grade your ad. And that's how, again, there's a couple ways that we can improve quality scores. Writing better ads, and you're just kind of looking at some of the feedback there. They'll give you some feedback with your quality score. So it might be you have to write some better ads. Maybe it's just making sure that your account overall is just, optimized and in good standing. But then also more specifically, it might be looking at your landing page, or maybe even creating a landing page that you're sending somebody to and making that much more direct to the ad itself. Those are all things that can really help, again, with a quality score. And you want as high of a quality score as possible, because of course, Google wants to promote not only companies, but also specific ads that are higher quality. Because really at the end of the day, and I talk about this in our SEO workshop as well, is that we want to make Google look like a rock star. Of course, we're the ones that are going to supply somebody with the coffee, table. We're the ones that are going to supply somebody with a website and the development of that. But really though, Google's kind of getting the credit for it, because they went to Google and searched, bedside table, and they found, again, your, Ben's furniture store, and were able to kind of do it. So yes, you were able to, be able to supply what they were looking for, but Google's the one that actually did the intermediate area and actually was able to, again, get them to you. So really at the end of the day, all I'm saying is we want to make Google look like a rock star, and we can help that process by having good quality scores on our different ads. Okay, so now, so that might be good. And you're like, okay, great. Well, that sounds great, Ben, but what does an actual ad creation look like? That's what we're talking about here. So there's a couple different things to kind of know. Is we have the character, headline, and description limits. You can see that within each one here. So there are actually 3 different headlines, and they each have a 30 character limit. Now, reminder, character means any space, punctuation, or letter. And so we have 30 characters to work with. you should probably try and utilize as many of those characters as possible without it actually detracting from the ad. I've seen people sometimes go overboard where they're adding stuff just to add it, and it just doesn't flow or it doesn't fit. Because remember, this is still going to be a visual ad that needs to intrigue the right person at the right time and get them to your website. So a couple other things to kind of some tips and strategy things to kind of notice. So the first is capitalization. So to know, so one little trick and tip that we really kind of give people is that when specifically in your description, but also your headline for that matter, is the first letter of each word should be capitalized. Studies have actually shown that your eye is actually more drawn to and it's easier to read for someone when you have the first letter of each word capitalized. So it's just a little trick that can potentially help your conversion rates, your click-through rates, and just connect better with individuals or users on there. Also, I kind of alluded to this in the previous slide, is that we also want to make sure that we have good keywords in our ads that we're creating, because we also want them to match the landing page that we're going to be kind of sending them to, whenever they click on our ad. So you want to make sure you try to put some of these keywords in there. Now, again, you don't want to stuff them. It still has to sound good, still has to look good, but we want to make sure that we have some of those. A lot of times headlines are a great way for that. Parking lot cleaning. This client could probably maybe even put MN at the end of it. That's another way to use some characters, or maybe connect kind of with them. Parking lot painting, parking lot striping. You can kind of see really good keywords that we're kind of looking at in there. You also want to make sure that you have a call to action. Call us today. Now, not only do you want potentially the call to action on your landing page, probably even more so, but even within your ad, try and play around with some of the call to actions. You have a lot, within the description area, you have 90 characters a piece to be able to play around with these descriptions. So at the end, maybe it's, call us for a free estimate, contact us today, get a free quote, whatever it may be. Look to kind of do that call to action. Now, here's a really kind of cool one, and this one kind of sometimes confuses people. So display URL, you kind of see that in the middle of this bottom left screenshot where it says display path. What's kind of fun about this is an opportunity for you to actually insert some keywords, and you're creating a marketing URL. What I mean by that is I'm going to go back to the previous slide here, and you can see the bottom, again, example here. So comprehensive insurance, protect yourself on a budget, get your free quote today. Those were those headlines that we kind of talked about. Get affordable and trustworthy insurance, 10% discount on all online quotes, easily compare insurance plans side by side in just a few seconds. Now, they didn't take our example here of capitalizing the first word, but you can see that that's a pretty good description. Now, what the display path though is the green URL that you're seeing there. This URL does not actually exist. It's only used for marketing purposes. Why that's important is, remember when we talked about that we want to put keywords into our ads? Well, this is a great way. Seeing the middle of that bottom left screenshot, you can see that this individual put parking lot and then / cleaning. So they got 2 extra, again, more keywords into their ad. And again, that URL does not exist. The reason Google does this is because way at the top, it's called your final URL, that's where you're sending somebody. So this is the URL that this individual is actually sending people to. Well, you can see that that's, again, can get really ugly, it can get really, again, messy. Some people have super long URLs. So Google allows you to essentially create a fake URL that's just used for marketing purposes and on the ad, and an opportunity to potentially even put some keywords in there. So it's really important to take advantage of that display URL. Now, again, it's only 15 characters per kind of, area. You get 2 areas. You can kind of see parking lot / cleaning, but it can be super powerful, both from a marketing standpoint when someone visually sees it, as well as from a quality score standpoint. Also, as you're creating these different types of ads, you can play around with some different even kind of subtypes that Google has. So for instance, you can do responsive search ads, which is essentially kind of what we're doing here. You can do just call ads. So if you just want to have some call ads, you can do dynamic search ads, which essentially kind of means that you kind of give Google some kind of call to actions or headlines, and they just create the ads for you. You can kind of play around with these. I will say more often than not, the most success we a lot of times see with clients are the ones that you kind of do yourself on the bottom left here. But there are some cool ones that you can kind of play around with. The call ads, can be pretty beneficial, especially if you are working with clients that, again, you want to get calls, or that you think that you can, target them obviously on a mobile device is probably going to be the most efficient, that they can call you right from there. So just saying that there's some different ad versions out there that you can kind of play around with, but really the same methodology on the left. And that's usually the best kind of ROI that we see a lot of people have, are still kind of creating these ads yourself, but then utilizing the different tools and different sections that Google has for you. Okay, so one of the last important pieces that we're going to talk about here today is going to be keywords. So this is another thing I kind of alluded to at the beginning, is this is where the cost is designated or derived from. So this is where when people always ask me, well, Ben, how much should I budget? How much are ads? Well, I'll give you some basic kind of averages here, but really it's dependent on the keywords that you want to go after. So just a good rule of thumb, an average cost per click is usually $2 to $4. That's a really good kind of average range. Now, again, don't get me wrong. We've had people way less than that. I've had people way higher than that. It's just an average across every, again, demographic and service out there. That $2 to $4 is a really good kind of range, from that. So now here's kind of the thing. So again, remember, keywords are going to be connected to your different ad groups, which are going to trigger the different ads. That's why we want them to be specific, because even if we have 3 different types of bedside table ads, the keywords are still going to pull them up, and then Google can do that A/B testing. So you can technically have an unlimited list amount of keywords, you're not capped, but it is recommended that you stick to about approximately 15 to 25 different keywords per ad group. This is because when you start to get above that, there's a lot of times, where you could almost probably make another ad group. Because again, going back to, I've said this how many times now, being more specific is going to benefit you. So you want to make sure that you're as specific as possible, and this kind of helps you. So you want to try to stay between 15 to 20 different keywords for each ad group. Also, it's important that there is something called match type. And this graph here on the right-hand side shows you what that is. So a lot of people just start typing in keywords, again, roof repair, roofing company near me, and they just kind of do a list. Well, those are called broad match. And that might be a way to kind of start, but more often than not, what happens with broad match is you start getting a ton of keywords that are somewhat related, but really aren't something that you want to pay for. And this kind of gives you an example of that. So we can kind of move down and be more and more specific to Google and say, hey, I want, again, to try to communicate to Google that these are the types of searches that I want. So some of them are, for instance, broad match modifier. You can kind of see that it contains a modified term, but in any order. And you can kind of see the example on the far right with women's hats. Phrase match, it's again, it's an exact phrase, but something can be before or after it. Buy women's hats. An exact phrase is nothing can be before, nothing can be after, has to be that exact one. Most often, most clients that we deal with are going to be kind of in the middle there, because again, you want to be somewhat restrictive, but you don't want to be too restrictive. Because the other thing too is you want to also have a discoverability factor, which essentially is just referring to that if you get too specific with your match types and some of your keywords, and maybe having a few is fine, but if all of yours are exact match or a phrase match, sometimes what happens is what you think people are searching for may not be the case. And so you can't discover potential new keywords. Now, of course, on the opposite side, we don't want to be too broad, where now we're paying for when people are searching for competitors, or like, for instance, one here is if I'm selling fancy women's hats and someone searches in for women's baseball Twins hat, of course, that's not what I'm looking for. That's also why it's super critical to both pay attention to on a daily or weekly basis, but also at the beginning, put some of these negative keywords in here, because what negative keywords are is it's a way to communicate to Google that to say, hey, if someone has one of these keywords or key phrases in one of their searches that they're doing, don't show my ad. So again, a prime example is here with baseball with women's hats. I also like to sometimes, again, this may not be applicable to you, but a lot of clients, for instance, we like to put in there cheap, free, how much does this cost? Things like that, where you probably don't want to be paying for that. Again, if someone's looking for cheap car repair, again, and if that's the demographic you go with, that's great. But there's more often than not, you're going to probably want to put your money into someone that's not right off the bat just looking for price and just looking for cheap. So it's making sure that you kind of realize that in kind of with negative keywords, again, there. So you'll kind of play around with this. Also, as you start to analyze your keywords, because Google's going to show you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever you're looking at it as, it's a 24/7 dashboard, but they're going to constantly be showing you what people are searching for. So anytime you see a keyword that someone utilized that triggered your ad, and someone clicked on it or potentially even didn't click on it, and that's a keyword that you're like, ooh, no, that's not a good one. Then you want to add that to your negative keyword list. That's a super powerful way to communicate to Google and to help them understand more of who you are. Google's using all of these different types of components. They're using how you're writing the ads and the keywords. They're using the landing page. They're just using their past experience. They're maybe even using your past experience if you've run ads or campaigns before. But this is the most direct way to kind of communicate that and to help Google understand what you actually want to go for. Also, process is you have to submit the keywords. It's important to realize that they have to kind of be verified and just qualified as well. The other thing to note too is they have to have a minimum threshold of being searched. Now there's really no like number, but if you put in a keyword, Google will sometimes tell you to say, hey, this keyword's not going to show up because it's not searched often enough. We see this a lot of times when people are trying to run ads for specific part numbers. It just a lot of times there's not a sufficient amount of traffic. And believe it or not, Google won't run ads for keywords that don't have sufficient amount of traffic. Most of the time though, you're not really going to kind of see that, to be honest. And then last but not least is highly, highly recommend keyword research, because again, you essentially are just going to be guessing the keywords. Now, again, you can do an educated guess and then be able to manage this on an ongoing basis and see the discoverability factor with the keywords that, oh, I didn't think someone could search for that. Yes, I want to go after that one as well. Or I don't want to go after that one. Don't show that again. But again, it's highly recommended that you, before you start going into this process, that you do some of this keyword research. Now, there's a couple tools that I recommend. Google has their own built-in keyword research tool called the Keyword Planner tool. So definitely look at that one. That's completely free. But there's a couple other tools that we really like to utilize and I like to kind of share with you. So one is called Moz, M-O-Z, as well as another one is called SEM Rush. And so both Moz and SEM Rush are two platforms. They're actually freemium models, which means you can actually do some stuff for free. And then when you get to a certain point, you're going to have to pay for it. But it's super powerful stuff, and it can really help you potentially discover other keywords that you may want to put into there, as well as just get some more background data and maybe see what your competitors are actually searching or running ads on or ranking for. Those are the types of things that you can actually see with Moz and SEM Rush. So between the Google AdWord Planner tool and Moz and SEM Rush, you can really get a good comprehensive kind of keyword research, and you could potentially even do it for free, depending on how extreme you want to go with Moz and SEM Rush, knowing that the Keyword Planner tool is completely free internally with Google. Okay, so another thing that you can add to your ads, once you've got all of these kind of set up, there are some, again, there are some components called ad extensions. Really what these are is not only can they add some useful information to users that are looking at your ad, another kind of cool benefit is they also take up more space. Obviously, the more space you take up, the higher chance that you potentially have to be able to be clicked and to be able to be found, with these different ads. And so ad extensions, for instance, if your goal is to get customers to buy from your business location, you can actually have a location extension where your address is right there. Someone could click on that, start driving right away. Maybe you have an affiliate location extension. Maybe you sell your products in other retail chains or other locations, and you want to be able to show that. Call out extension. This is just adding an additional text, free delivery, 24/7 customer support. You're just paying for extra characters that could also be beneficial to people that are looking to buy from your location. Maybe your goal is to get customers to contact you. We talked about those call only ads. You can also just add a call extension to, again, your ads. And what's really powerful about this is, this is essentially this isn't talking about when someone goes into your website and clicks on your phone number or goes into your website and then picks up their phone and starts dialing you. Really what this is talking about is that if the ad that you're showing connects with someone right away and goes, oh, Ravina Lawn Service, 50% off for service. This sounds great. I don't even need to go to their website. I'm just going to call them now. that can be super powerful. I love the call extension because if you can get people to call you right from your ad, that is a powerful, powerful thing because they didn't even need to go to your website to actually be able to be convinced. Plus, of course, who doesn't want to talk with a client, a customer, instead of potentially getting a contact form and then scheduling and trying to follow up? You've got them interested right there. So I highly recommend, if you are looking to get customers to contact you or call you, to look at the call extension for your ads. Also, if your goal is to get customers to convert on your website, there's a couple different ones that you can also utilize. One's called the site link extension, where you can actually list other pages on your website. Maybe if it's your portfolio, your order, your hours, your order now, it just gives some people some more options for it. Call out extension we talked about previously. There's something called a structured snippet extension. So you can show, again, potential valuable information to, again, for instance, you could do your product or service categories, again, and kind of show them kind of out there. It's called a structured snippet extension. Really what you're doing is you're just taking some information from your site and being able to kind of lay it out like a product or service category that might be beneficial to users. And last but not least is a price extension. So we can actually showcase our services, our product prices, if you so choose. Some people like that, some people don't. But again, you have these options and you can pick and choose which ones fit you and fit your demographic and business. Okay, so I know that we talked a lot about this, and I know that we'll probably have to come back and reference this. We've got a lot of good questions that I want to get to here, but just as a quick review, that what we're talking about before we get into that is, again, we're talking about SEM, search engine marketing. We're talking about the different advertising models there, but specifically we're talking about the pay-per-click system. Again, setting up that account and understanding that it's Ben's Furniture Store, and then most likely tables, beds, and then underneath those within the ad groups are bedside tables, coffee tables, et cetera, et cetera. When we're writing our ads, making sure that we're taking note of the different characters, the different devices they may be on, some of the different tips that we kind of talked about with capitalization or the display URL. Then ultimately, obviously, looking at the ad extensions that we just went through to kind of supplement and enhance more or less your ads. And then last but not least is understanding kind of the quality score in SEO. One big misconception is that if I run ads, my website will rank better on SEO. That's not the case. It's actually the reverse. If you have better SEO, which essentially, if you've seen my presentations, or maybe you know this, but SEO is like essentially having a long-term business relationship with Google. Well, the better your long-term business relationship is with Google, the better your quality score and your ads can be. Because yes, Google's going to take the money, but if they can come to a user and they feel more confident in you than somebody that just started out of nowhere running ads, well, again, they want to be made to look like a rock star. So they trust you more, which then can essentially kind of benefit you when it comes to, again, better pricing, better ranking, and things like that. So that's why SEO definitely has a long-term benefit and has a just, on its own, but also has a huge benefit even with SEM, because again, having better SEO can help your SEM. It's not the reverse. Okay, so with that, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I want to open up the questions here because I know we have a bunch of questions and I want to get through them. If you guys still are, again, tuning in, you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will make sure to hit each one of them. Just as another reminder, this is being recorded and you will not only get the recording as well as the PDF presentation. Okay, so I have one question from Dale that says, I keep getting calls from companies that say they're Google and to pay for the ads. Really, Dale, what they're doing is that Google does call if you're actually running ads with them. But a lot of companies use words like, hey, we're working with Google, or things like that, and they're not actually Google. Be very cautious of that. Here's the other thing that I'll be completely honest about too is, I like Google's effort with their support and their expertise within the Google Ads kind of system. The problem though is that it's not very unified. So even if you do get a call from Google, just be a little cautious. And the reason I say this is, and as of course it's Google's platform, but their support staff is really, again, and we've done case studies on this to kind of see their support and see their recommendations. A lot of times what ends up happening is two things. One is if you talk to 3 different support people at Google, you most likely will get 3 different recommendations or answers, and sometimes they're completely opposite of each other. So they're not very much on the same page, and it gets really frustrating for that. The other thing too that we've actually seen a lot of times when Google actually does call and make recommendations, it ends up being that your budget ends up getting exasperated a lot quicker and the results aren't really any different. So they do help with some things when it comes to just getting your account going or potentially giving you a promo, but just be cautious. And that's why I do, like, for instance, these workshops and stuff like that to show you some of these tips and tricks, just because, again, I love Google's effort to try and help. It's just unfortunate because, again, it's not congruent and you can get conflicting answers, as well as their advice a lot of times doesn't necessarily yield results. Sorry, I'm just trying to look at some of the questions. Some of them are a little bit more kind of personal or about PDFs and about the downloads. Dale, SEO definition, as we talked about, search engine optimization. Okay, so we got a question here from Mr. Johnson that says, do you find there's a higher conversion rate where the CTA is a phone call versus a link to a website form? And so just kind of break this question down. So when we're talking about a conversion rate, which is ultimately what you want somebody to do. So a conversion could be you want someone to reach out via contact form. You want someone to purchase something. You want someone to buy something from you. And so really what the question here is CTA, which is your call to action, is it better to get people to buy from you or to do what with a phone call or a website form? Here's the honest answer is you should have both. Because here's where it again is you're going to have some people that don't want to talk to you, that don't want to call, and they're going to have some people that do want to just pick up the phone and call. It's something we deal with. For instance, when we start talking about like videos and SEO and all this other kind of stuff, there's a big stat within kind of the video and SEO realm that says that 2/3 of people would actually rather watch a video than read content on a page. Why that's applicable here is that, yes, even a third of people would rather read content than a video. But if we do both of them, then we get 100%. Obviously you don't want to cut yourself short and only be going after 30% of the people or even 60% of the people. So that's where I would say here with this kind of thing is, honestly, it does kind of depend on your demographic and what you're selling and what you're doing. But a lot of times that's why I recommend like an ad extension, is because you can have both. You can have the person that wants to go to your contact form and go right there to your website. You can also have the person that wants to call you and do that right away. Sherry asked, can I dump Angie's List, their new rebranding, and just use Google? And the answer is, well, absolutely, yes, you can. And to be quite frank, is that we've had a lot of customers over the past couple of years, especially with the struggle between Angie's List and Home Advisor, be able to actually switch over to Google because you have some more control over it. Also, I'll be completely honest, I like those platforms and I liked where they were at, even in like, they even helped pave the path for a lot of these types of things. But the stuff that a lot of times we see that you're paying for with Angie's List and Home Advisor, people aren't going to those platforms as often as they used to be because they trust Google and even Bing, Yahoo. They trust their own searchability and not having to go to a platform and sometimes even pay to be a part of that platform and all that kind of stuff. So absolutely, you could shift your budget to Google, and a lot of times you have more control over it, and we've had a lot better results. Now, again, that might not be the case for every person out there, and and if you're using Angie's List and Home Advisor, more power to you. I've just, again, from my experience, especially over the past 5 years, I've heard probably 2 to 3 times more negative than positive with those platforms, and we've helped a lot of people transition. Melissa's question is, are the ad extensions also PPC or are they pay when you set them up? Great question. They are also PPC. So they're just another way for your, again, users to engage with it. But, again, you're not charging, you're not being charged just to set up a call extension. You're only being charged essentially just like pay per click when someone actually utilizes that ad extension. So I'm just reading through these guys. So perfect. Well, actually, so it looks like that's the questions. I have a lot of great comments. And again, thank you guys for, I see a lot of positive comments and gracious comments to me about the presentation. I really appreciate it. I love even seeing some of the comments going back and forth and you guys even answering your own questions. That's also pretty kind of cool, and seeing your guys' own expertise. So one of the things is, I just want to, wrap it up here, but if you guys have any final questions, please put them in the chat and I'll make sure to kind of get them. Otherwise, if we don't get to questions, or more often than not, a lot of times we'll get into this stuff and and then have questions, that's why we leave our contact information here. So, I encourage you to reach out if you do have any questions. Also, an offering that we do is we offer a free consultation. This isn't a sales pitch, especially for SEM. We help a lot of clients they'll come to us and say, hey, Ben, I heard you offer that free consultation. Can you just make sure my account is set up correctly? Can you just walk through with me on how to set up an app? All of that kind of stuff we can do. It's just another way that we give back. If you want to talk about our services or our management fees and stuff like that, more than happy to talk about that, of course, as well, and see how we might be able to help you as experts in this field, be able to take you and actually, take you to the next level and implement these services as well. But again, if you just want some help and you want a little bit more one-on-one kind of questions, feel free to take us up on our, no obligation free consultation. Just simply kind of email us out, or you can respond back to the email that I'll send you guys with the PowerPoint presentation there, and we can set that up. Also, another thing just to leave you with is that, I encourage you to check out our full workshop schedule at skolmarketing.com/workshops. We have a bunch of workshops coming up this fall and into this winter, as well as if you ever miss a workshop, you can also see it on our YouTube channel. We, again, all of our workshops are recorded. Not all of them are posted on there, but at least all the topics are posted on our YouTube channel. And so you can get to our YouTube channel from our website or just searching for us on YouTube as well. But really just take advantage of all that information. If that's a free consultation, if that's, again, our blogs, if that's our social posts, or if that's our free workshops we do. So once again, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this was useful to you guys. I hope you guys at least learned a few things. You guys have a wonderful day, and Skol.
Okay, I got a couple things I'd like to mention. One, there's a poll we've posted that's up, and we'd like to get your feedback. We do use this, it's very helpful for us in deciding what we're going to continue presenting and if we need to do more of something or less of something. So we really appreciate that. And if you would take a couple minutes, they're only like, I think, 4 or 5 questions. And it's a simple, just check the box. So that would be very much appreciated. Other than that, again, if you'd like to look into getting a mentor, go to our website, which is Twin Cities, all run together, .score.org. And on the on the home page, you'll find a big box you can click that says Find a Mentor. You plug in your zip code, and within a week, you'll have a mentor who is someone who will work with you for as long as you want to work with them. Both in getting your business started if you're not up and running, and or helping you grow your business if you are up and running. I see there was one question. Okay, one question that didn't get answered, and I apologize for that. Somebody asked if you start out with AdWords Express, can you convert to AdWords? And the answer is yes. You don't have to sign contracts. That's a neat part of this whole thing. So anyway, look forward to seeing you again at a future SCORE presentation. And please do take a couple minutes and fill out the poll. Okay, I'm going to give it about another 2 minutes, and then I'm going to end the presentation. So please do the poll now if you haven't already done it. Okay, well, thank you very much. And look forward to seeing you again at a future SCORE webinar.